Welcome to Get on the Ark. My name is Darren Conrad, your host. For those of you that don't know who we are, this show is about how God is doing extraordinary and miraculous things in ordinary people's lives. There's a storm coming, a spiritual storm with dark days ahead for all of humanity. And just as God warned Noah to build an ark to save his family from the coming flood, all across the globe, God is calling his people out of darkness and out of complacency and into a relationship with Jesus to save us from the storm that is coming to our generation. So welcome to Get on the Ark. Welcome, and today on the Ark, we are honored to welcome a pastor, a missionary, the founder of America Restored. He has dedicated his life to bringing pastors and believers together through prayer, biblical truth, and a call for a spiritual awakening across America. His powerful testimony and ministry are centered on revival, restoration, unity, and bringing our nation back to God. So welcome, Pastor Jack Stagman. Welcome, Jack.
Well, Darren, it's a privilege to come back and see you again. You know, seeing your smiley face, it's such an encouragement to me because I remember the time that we came to visit with you, me and my brother, and then the whole first landing team landed at your place, and we went out fishing on 2 boats, and we had the best time of our lives. And I've got those pictures. I'll show everybody those pictures of all the fish we caught that day. In fact, I've never caught so many fish. So I remember those times. I hope one day we could do that again.
Yes, absolutely. That was so much fun. And it's interesting. I love divine appointments and how the Lord kind of, I'm driving up to Baltimore and God tells me to pull off in Winchester, Virginia. The next thing I know, I'm at this event called Wake Up Winchester. And I get to hear you speak for the first time about 1607 First Landing. So share a little bit about your journey with what brought you to Winchester and where the Lord is leading you on restoring our nation.
You know, the story is so complex and so interesting because God weaves people together. There's only a remnant of Christians in America today that I can tell you. I headed up a ministerial association in Northern Virginia for 12 years. And eventually we had to close it down because there were so few pastors willing to pray together, work together. And when you have a look at what's happening to the mainline churches and many of the church groups today, there are very few that are actually relevant in society today, sadly. The church that I attend to, Cornerstone Chapel, is a good example of that. When I came to America 25 years ago, and I headed up the Ministerial Association in Northern Virginia, my pastor, Pastor Gary, was like most of the other pastors. They didn't work together. They didn't pray together. They didn't want to associate together. And David Barton, is a well-known person, spoke with him one day and said, hey, listen, pastors actually give election sermons. And he gave him 10 books on election sermons. Well, that changed his life. And today, he's one of the most relevant pastors in Virginia with a congregation of 6,000 people. They got very much involved in the whole crisis of schools in Loudoun County, where I live. And, and today, they've got over 554 students at the school they decided to start because they weren't going to go through the public school system. They wanted to create their own private school system.
Wow.
So you want to bring it up to the Winchester story. So we've had a lot happen since then. I think that one of the most notable things that have ever happened in my life, if we're really honest and we look at our lives, we've probably tackled many projects. I know you're probably the same. And if we're really honest, there's very few projects that were successful in our lives. But when we hear the word of God and speaking to us, and we are humble and we are obedient to listen to Him, things start to happen. And the First Landing project is one of those that impacted our lives in a significant way. And just for those that don't know about it, going back 3 years ago, we found out that there was a covenant that was on the books that nobody knew about. In fact, 99% of Americans never knew about first landing. When the first three ships arrived from England, and they were assigned to come to the new land and essentially dedicate the new land to Christ and to start business and start trading. And that's what they did. And they landed in Virginia Beach on the 29th of April, 1607. And they came aboard. Sorry, let me just turn my phone off. Is that my phone? So they landed, and there was a minister on board, and he made a covenant with God. That was his instruction. It's only a paragraph, but it's so powerful because it sent America on a new direction. And from there, they went up the James River and landed up at Jamestown. And of course, everybody knows about Jamestown. And then, of course, if you look at the Mayflower event in 1620, and there's many other historical areas, but this is a specific time that's very important, is the 1607, 29th of April, where the first covenant was made with God. Now, to my knowledge, there's only three countries that have covenants. One, obviously, is Israel, number one. South Africa also has a covenant with God, going back to 1652. And of course, we're in 1607. So our lives have changed quite drastically, because what happened when I realized what was happening after attending an event um, in Virginia Beach, I realized that God was doing something. And later he spoke to me and said, "Go back to origin, go back to origin, go back to origin." Of course, being so stupid as I am, I had no idea what that meant. And I did some research and very shortly realized the importance of the first covenant. I wrote a white paper on that subject, and the first landing team came out of that, and the event took place in 2023. So something even more significant happened. So we were meeting on the 29th of April last year. We were invited to go to the White House. And through Don Blake, one of our colleagues in our team, we had connected with a guy called Vince Haley, who's the director of domestic affairs. And we spoke to him and told him about the history of first landing, and he didn't know about it, and he did his own research. The next thing, we were invited to the White House, and the president signed a proclamation recognizing and honoring the very first landing in 1607, which was historical in itself. Now, at that meeting, our team spoke about President Trump considering to take this a step further now that he's written a proclamation recognizing the covenant. How about him considering doing something for the 250th anniversary by rededicating America back to God? So we were very surprised in March, where President Trump comes on screen and he says, "I'm going to dedicate America back to God on the 17th of May this year." And of course, thousands of people came from all over the country. And that event was a 9-hour long event in Washington, D.C. So we were absolutely blown away that, you never know the seeds that you plant, what might happen to that. And God did that, where our own president rededicated America back to God on the 17th of May. So that for us was a sign that God is working. And you never know where all these ideas might go. And so we're working now towards another event next year. So the team are putting all these ideas together to have keynote speakers, and hopefully the president will be part of that as well. So that's where we are at the moment. So we've got other things happening, but I'm sure you've got some questions, or you want to redirect those thoughts.
Yeah, so one of the things that really just intrigued me, so I heard about when I met you in Winchester at the Wake Up Winchester event, and when you shared about the first landing, and then you had an event there with Glenn Beck, David Barton, Donica Hudson, and Joy Lamb, and these just amazing patriots, and you met Robert and Jamie, they were there and became part of that event as well.
Yes, they were key instruments. They were part of that team from the very beginning. Donica, Robertson, Jamie, Craig Hutchins, Don Black. So that was the original team, and we're still all working together. And we look back at our lives and we say to ourselves, we've all worked in many projects, but this has been the one that's been most meaningful to all of us. And in fact, the way we're going forward, it's going to even be more significant.
Yes. Well, when you literally replanted a cross right at the beach at this event, and then wasn't there some kind of storm that happened? Isn't there a story about a?
Yes, that's true. Well, we didn't replant the cross because obviously the first wooden cross that they planted, disappeared, many years ago. But there was a cross that was built in. I'm trying to get my facts right. I think 1930 thereabouts. It's a concrete cross that's in the area at the moment, and it's actually on a military base. And you are right. Immediately after the event, a storm came through. Um, it, I think it was no, it wasn't a hurricane. It was a tornado. That's right. It came through, and it started off at the church that we were working from, and it went right through the first landing area and out to sea. Nobody was killed, but it was an horrific event, and people said we've never seen anything like that come through Virginia Beach. And so, but God protected everybody and nobody was hurt. But there was a lot of damage. But it started off with the church where we started off. There was one church that worked with us, and it went right through where the cross was and out to sea. So, I can't tell you what that means, but we all felt, somebody was not happy about what we were doing.
Yes. Well, I mean, it's significant because it's what a memory and a profound statement, right? Saying rededicating our land back to God, and then Trump making the proclamation, which that just happened, which is fantastic. So, what I want to ask you, when I was in Winchester, you passed out a sheet, a form, and you had everyone in the audience fill it out, and you had written a proposal, a strategy about how to restore America. Do you want to share that message?
Well, I think it's very important because it's only now starting to play out. So those were some initial ideas, and essentially what it was recognizing that all of us have a passion and a calling in some area. For example, mine is in the area of good governance. My second passion is business. I've been involved in business since probably when I was 24. I had my own engineering and mining supply business in South Africa. And I was one of the largest manufacturers of mechanical jacks and hydraulic jacking systems, and also underground systems for support in the mining industry. So, sorry, where were we going with that? I've lost my track on that question.
Oh,
Sorry.
well, I think it was restoring the seven mountains. I think it was
Oh, yeah, that's right. So we decided and looked at the seven mountain strategy, which everyone knows about, and we realized that there were many more spheres of influence that people were involved in. And if we just went for seven mountains, we would leave many people out. So we worked in partnership with South Africa. They were going through a similar situation. And together we came up with 20 spheres of influence. And the idea of that was essentially to bring people that were like minded together so that we can function together at a local level. Now, I was just speaking a couple of minutes ago to a friend of mine, Craig Hutchins, and I introduced him to another South African friend, and he owned an aircraft company. Anyway, this happened probably 4 years ago, and they spoke for 2.5 hours, and they left me out the topic altogether. And what do you think these two guys spoke about? They spoke about aviation and their love for aviation. And I began to realize that if you get people together, for example, I went together with a bunch of guys to go and fish in Delaware for 20 years. And what do you think we spoke about all the time? Fishing.
Yes.
We were all like-minded fishermen, and it was amazing what came out of that, the relationships that were built up. So that's, I think, a key point to bring these people together at a local county level, identify their spheres of influence. So if you're in health, for example, and I start speaking about education, you might have an interest in education, but your primary interest is health because many people are very sick and people are looking for alternatives. And so you would probably gravitate more towards somebody that's in health as opposed to education. So that's the simple principle, is that we help people identify their spheres of influence at a local level, get them to build relationship with one another, and for the Lord to show them how they can make an impact in their local community. For example, Dana's group in Winchester, it's called Mountain Patriots now, and they've got a group that meet together every week, and that's turned into a weekly podcast. And they're doing the same thing as you do. They're talking to people in these different areas, and they're influencing a lot of people. So they got some media people and together and said, look, we need to be able to reach people, and what by podcast is one of the best ways to do that. So they also then meet once a week on online, and then I think the one week they meet online, the next week they meet in person, and they've been doing this for a number of years now. I can imagine that requires some determination and commitment to come together. I think there's a group of about 50 of them that meet together every week. Now that is significant. I mean, how many counties do you know where a group of people are meeting every week to talk about everything from guns to health to what's happening in the political field? And they are so active. In fact, they've really inspired me as a model group for America. What can be done if you've got a small group of people that are willing to work together and to identify the different spheres of influence and say, okay, let those people go and let them do what they can. It's just been a privilege to watch what's happening. And there's a similar group developing in Winchester, in Virginia Beach, that I've noticed as well, that have tremendous promise. People that are wanting just to find solutions for their community. So, although things are pretty bleak around the world and even in our own country, there is hope that remnant are coming together to make a difference.
Yeah.
So, thank you for what you're doing, because you're playing an important part. I think you mentioned you had about 300 of these podcasts, bringing people together. I'm sure you found that each one that you've spoken to has got a different area of influence and calling in life, right?
Yes. Yes. It's all seven mountains really, and beyond. And there's an awakening happening, and there's a revival stirring, and God is moving across this country, and He's not done with America yet. And there's a lot of great things happening.
So, something I would like to share with you. I've never been part of a political structure in my life. So in January, I decided to join the Republican Party. Not that the Republican Party has got all the answers. So in my mind, I was looking at this, and of course, I had many years involved in politics in South Africa, having been involved as one of the co-founders of one of the first Christian party in South Africa that's still in office in Parliament 31 years later. So I've had this good governance calling for some time, and I realized the importance of being involved in the government's field. So what I did was I built relationship with the chairman of Loudoun County Republican Party, very good man, and I spoke with him often and over lunch. And what I learned from him is that 70% of the leaders of the Republican Party are rhinos. They're Democrats masquerading as Republicans. And then I started to have a look at what happened in Virginia. It's been a disaster. We've become like another California. So, what happened in November last year? The Democrats were in control with 51%. Now, because they had all these rhinos involved, they decided they weren't going to nominate anybody for 15 counties. The result was the Democrats got 64% of the vote in Virginia, and we were wiped out and became like another California. But what is worse is that there are many people in the Legislative Assembly who are rhinos who vote with the Democrats. We estimate that on any bill, 75% of the vote will go the wrong way. It will not go for people of faith. So I was trying to figure out, okay, Lord, I see very clearly what's happening. Now, in Virginia, if you have an election, say, for a chairman of a county, anybody can vote. You can be a Democrat, you can be not involved in politics, and you can come and vote. I saw 2 buses come to an election, and I saw a good chairman being taken out. And I thought to myself, if I had a large number of people that I'd mobilized at the grassroots level, people of faith, we could have changed the situation. And then I remember what happened when President Trump was elected. He made a statement 2 weeks after his election. He said, "Do you know that there was one state where all 77 counties voted for Trump? That's 100% support from all the counties. It's never happened in the history of the Republican Party, and that is the state of Oklahoma." I did some digging and I found out there was a group of people that started off a shadow Republican Party, and many of them were pastors. And over a space of a few years, they identified all those rhinos. They built up an independent group, but operating within the Republican Party, but they were operating separately. They identified the rhinos, and within 2 years, outvoted all of those people, and they actually took over the Republican Party. And the result was 100% of the counties voted at the last election for President Trump. So I thought to myself, why reinvent the wheel? We've got all of these challenges that we have in Virginia. Let's find out what they were doing. And I went to a conference for 4 days. It was only about 14 people involved. It was a small training group. And the leaders of that event from Oklahoma, they were at this event. And we learned so many new strategies. We also identified all the threats that face America right now. I mean, I understood the Muslim Brotherhood threat for some time, but I never realized to the extent of the infiltration. I mean, they've got a situation, I'm sure you are aware of it, of what's happening in Dearborn right now in Minnesota. I believe there's about 45,000 Muslims marched on the streets, and now I think all the bikers, I don't know how many, I've watched pictures of all the bikers going to Dearborn, but they were going to go and have a hog barbecue. But what I'm trying to say is that the influence of the Muslim Brotherhood is significant in America, and the average person has got no idea what's going on. So what they do is they build a mosque. They then take over all the businesses in the area. They then buy out all the properties in the area. They then start to operate under Sharia law in the area. And of course, the Constitution says there shall be no other law but American law. But nevertheless, that is what they're doing. So I recognized the influence of that area, and I really started to admire what they're actually doing. Not that I want to be part of it. I absolutely detest what they're doing, but I started to think of how effective they were. They had organized hundreds of organizations under that in different spheres of influence, and the political one was only one area, which they now started to take over many areas. And I thought to myself, when I think of the people of faith, we are so fragmented and broken and disunited, and there's only a strong remnant left. And what do we need to do? And the Lord showed me so clearly in Amos 1:19. In fact, I'll send you the document. I started to write a document, and he spoke about the covenant brotherhood. Oh my goodness. it all jumped into place, thinking what we've done with the covenant and how important it is and what the president has done, acknowledged it. And so, you know what? I thought to myself, what is the Christian response to the Muslim Brotherhood? Well, it's a covenant brotherhood. Its values are totally opposite to what the Muslim Brotherhood is. And when you see the document, I've started to research from a biblical point of view the values of God as opposed to the values of Satan. So if you have a look, Satan has infiltrated those groups and other groups. Then if you have a look at the uh, the, uh, the world groups that operate the banking system, how they've come in to infiltrate. Then you've got the socialism infiltration. And I thought, this is really a wonderful opportunity to, number one, unite people and bring them back to the covenant. So that's why we are looking at very shortly. I'm just writing a strategic plan right now on where we go with the covenant brotherhood, how we start mobilizing in masses and mobilize the Christian community in particular. But then there are two elements. There's the faith aspect, but there's also the political aspect that we need to be able to redirect the politics. And if you're just going to try and change the Republican Party right now, you're not going to have much success. If you have a look at Virginia as an example, we have got wonderful organizations, non-profit organizations, involved in life, involved in guns, and literally every topic you can imagine. There are hundreds of organizations. And yet, when I look at the overall picture, instead of going in the right direction, Virginia's going in the wrong direction, in the total opposite direction. And I thought to myself, the old scenario, if you continue to do what you're doing, you're going to have the same results. And I thought, we've got to change the scenario and change this rapidly. So I think the combination of bringing in the covenant brotherhood, mobilizing the remnant, would be a very easy job for us to do under using the different spheres of influence, and from there to connect them to the shadow Republican Party so that we can help redirect the Republican Party to get back on track. Because right now, in my opinion, they've gone far off track. If you look at the national level, they are not doing well at all. There's very few that are willing to stand up. So we've got a big job. And at 77, I would rather go fishing with you,
Yeah.
Darren, than doing what I'm doing. But
Well,
I
ha-
have, I have, I have hope for America. I have hope for Virginia, and I believe that what we're doing in Virginia could well go to other states as well, because what they're doing is not working, and we need to do something that's different.
how can my guests support you, follow you, or get involved with the Covenant Brotherhood?
Well, it's still early days yet. I'm thinking that by September we'll have a strategic plan together. But people can start to contact me. I can send them out what we've done so far. I will send you a document on the values and to have some idea on how to proceed. We have to move to the next step of financing um, a website for this so that people can sign up at a local level to participate in a one-day training. Yeah, so we initially need, probably about $100,000 to get some basics into place. I think the communications and website. Then we need to start getting a couple of geographical areas where we can get out and reach 10, 20, 30 people at a time. So we want to start everything by October 1 and actually get out. And then if people want to invite us to a geographical area, I'd be happy to come anywhere in the country, because the problem that we're facing right now, Darren, is not for Virginia only. It's across the entire America. And so I will go wherever the Lord wants me to go, I will go. And I'm not going to shut up. I was in hospital. I've been quite sick for the last month. I was in Florida and I had flu-like symptoms and had to spend a week in bed and came back on the 19th of July. And they've had a lot of brain fog, uh, some severe headaches. And last week, you won't believe what happened. I was driving along and I thought, oh my gosh, all these big trucks were coming past me. And I'd lost 90% of my hearing in both ears. So I landed up in hospital on Friday. And they were taking tests and they found I had a UTI infection. And anyway, so I've got a whole protocol I'm taking, trying to get everything going again. But one of the things that I realized, we need to have people who can stand up. Because during the test, you know what they asked me? They said, oh, can we give you a test as part of our protocol for COVID? Can we give you a COVID test? And I said to the nurse, you want to give me a bioweapon test? And I said, why are you doing this? And so I said, you can't do this. And she said, well, look, we would also like to give everybody a shot. I said, the last thing in my life is you're going to never give me a shot. You're not going to put a bioweapon into me. And I said, what on earth is your hospital doing? It's a beautiful hospital in Loudoun County and Nova Hospital. What are you doing promoting the bioweapon? You want to put that into me? Have you lost your freaking mind? So then the doctor came in, and I'm afraid I caused a lot of trouble. And I said to her, listen, you've just given me a CAT scan, and I've got a note from a nurse friend over here, and she's saying that a CAT scan gives you 100 times more radiation than an ordinary, X-ray. And I said, why aren't you warning me about this? Now I've got to take all of these extra protocols to protect me from all this radiation. I said, surely your hospital should be telling me about this. And then, by the way, what are you doing trying to introduce a bioweapon that you know does not work, that has killed millions of people? And so that doctor was a very nice doctor until until I got a hold of her and started speaking to her about all of these things. Anyway, so you've got to speak the truth in love. And
Yeah.
that's what I'm asking people to do. You know what? God is amazing. He's absolutely wonderful. He's kept us going for 25 years. I've not had a job in 25 years. We've lived on faith for 25 years. And I can tell you, God just looks after us. I've got a 26-year-old car. This is one example. Anyway, I said to my wife, you know what? My car needs to be replaced. It's pretty old. It's a Lincoln. It's a beautiful car, but it's very old. So anyway, so there was a business partner of mine who passed away 4 years ago, and this car was in the estate, and there was a big fight over the estate. Anyway, so just overnight, they said, okay, we're going to donate this car to you. And so the car was donated to us. I got it into our names. Now they've been standing for, I think, 4 years. So it needed quite a bit of work, an alternator and a few other parts, batteries and whatnot. So it was about $1,300 in cost. And lo and behold, two of my friends came and said, look, we want to help you with this. So we got that car for nothing. Now, God is working like this all the time, not just some of the time, all of the time. So when you are in His will and you put your total trust in Him, you will be surprised what our Heavenly Father can do for you. And He will direct you.
Amen.
That's what I said to my friend Craig this morning. You know what? I don't want to go with any thoughts of Jack Stagman because he'll screw it up. Or anybody else. I just want to know, what does the Lord want me to do? And when I listen and when you humble yourself and listen to Him, He will redirect your paths. Never easy, never easy. And it always seems very late. I don't know if you've noticed that.
Yeah. Well,
But God is good. That's all I can say.
amen. Well, Jack, thank you for taking the time to share and to get on the ark. And I mean, that's the profound message, really, is just trust God and follow Him. Whatever He says, just say yes. Yeah.
Well, I want to bless you for all the work that you're doing. I know you've just got married recently, And that's why you got this big smile on your face and you're looking so young.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. God bless me with an amazing wife.
Well, congratulations.
Thank you. Thank
And, and keep up the good work that you're doing with your podcast. I love your podcast. I watch every one of them that come by, and you've been very consistent, very faithful, and it is so professional what you're doing. I mean, I wish I knew half, a fraction of what you know. You're
you.
doing a great job.
Well, thank you, thank you. And it's all God. He's the director and the producer and everything. So I just follow him. But
Well, thank
great
you.
having you on, Jack. I'll talk to you later. But thanks again for watching. And if you could please like, subscribe, and follow the channel. We have a show every day at 5 p.m. So there's so many amazing people and so many amazing stories. And after watching Jack, please. I know in your heart you want to share this with somebody. God wants us to share where we work, where we live, where we play. So share this message with somebody and watch God do his thing with them. And if you have a story that you'd like to share, go to our website, getontheark22.com, and sign up. We'd love to share your message as well. So thanks again, Jack, for being on the Ark. Thank you for watching Get on the Ark. And until next time, God bless you.
God bless you.